folks, we are back yet again, this time with an unfinished business. What? Deep dive splash. So, as always, I am your host, Jeff Gallashaw, and with me is my co-host, André Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
Bonjour, mofos.
And this week, we're going to take a look at a favorite of mine, at least, of the 1980s. From 1985, a little movie called Dun Dun Dun, but you've probably already seen it in the description, but The Heavenly Kid, starring Lewis Smith, Jason Gedrick, Richard Mulligan, Nancy Valen, Jane Kaczmarek, Mark Metcalf. I know some of you know who some of these people are, and a lot of you are like, who the hell are these people? The Heavenly Kid, which was directed by Carrie Medaway and written by Carrie Medaway and Martin Copeland, is a teen comedy about, it starts off in the 1960s where we're thrust into the middle of a drag race where the cool guy unfortunately perishes in a chicken run race, and he spends who knows how long in limbo, which is a subway train, and then finally gets off only to be taken to a bar by a biker named Rafferty, played by Richard Mulligan, where he finds out basically that he died. And now he is going to be sent back to Earth as a guardian angel for a kid, a nerdy kid who's, of course, trying to be cool and get his dream girl. So he finds out that he has to somehow do this while also learning the ropes of his powers. And of course, only the nerd kid can see him. And maybe his mission works too well because, again, spoilers, he ends up finding out that the teenager he's been sent to make cool is actually his son, Look, I didn't say this was the smartest or most original film, but this movie definitely made its mark for me. I did not see this in theaters. I saw this on home video, and it is a movie that I saw on home video, I liked, and over the years, it was always repeated on cable, network television, edited, obviously, because before I let André say his impression of the film, one of the things I love about this film is that it's a TNA comedy, yet it barely has any TNA in it, It's more like it's a teen comedy, but it actually kind of has a heart. And I'll admit, Lewis Smith is very long in the tooth to play this teenager guardian angel, but it works, he just comes off as cool throughout the film. And, he's a lifelong actor, still working today. And, I just really like this film. It's not the most original, it's not the best, but it's continuously entertaining. André, tell me about, when did you even first hear or see The Heavenly Kid?
I caught The Heavenly Kid sometime in the 2000s on like Fox 5 on a Saturday afternoon, and I just watched it. Probably because Jane Kaczmarek was in it, and obviously she was big with Malcolm in the Middle. And I thought that was kind of like a weird part for her to play because I didn't know she was that young back then, playing this guy's, love interest back in the 50s. It strikes me as interesting that it came out in 1985 because that was the same year Back to the Future came out and Teen Wolf. So it's like this movie is only missing Michael J. Fox because it's sort of like a reverse Back to the Future with a 50s kid going to the 1980s. And like Teen Wolf, you have the teenage son who's like, he wants to be the popular kid with the blonde girl. And when he does get that confidence and swagger, he ends up turning off the other pretty girl that likes him for who he is, So there's like the combination of those two movies kind of combined into this one film, and sort of like Heaven Can't Wait or one of these other movies where, an angel's trying to get his wings. And so, it knows what it is. It knows it's like, low rent, teen witch type of movie. There's nothing really like extravagant. Although I will say some of the effects are not bad. Some of the flying effects that they do for that time were actually done well. Lewis Smith is okay. I mean, I know he was in Buckaroo Banzai before this, so like he fits the role. But I won't lie, I'm watching him and I keep thinking of those Liberty Mutual commercials with the struggling actor. It's like that guy looks like the splitting image of Lewis Smith, even down to his swagger and his mannerisms. I'm just waiting for him to start saying, "Oh, Libbity Bibbity." And yeah, Mark Metcalf, he's playing against type in this one, because normally, like, since Animal House, he's always playing that asshole, even in the Twisted Sister videos. But here it's like they want you to think he's going to be that, and then it turns out, nah, he's actually a nice guy. He just happened to be the one to take care of Jane Kaczmarek, after she lost her boyfriend. And of course, the kid from Iron Eagle, Jason Gedrick, playing the teen, fits his part. He's a geek, and then he gets a little cool swagger to himself. Surprising his career never went further after those movies, but he's okay here. He's not bad. The thing that stands out to me, though, is the soundtrack by George Duke.
Yes.
Of all people, I would never have thought in a million years that a soundtrack for a film that's supposed to be like, Back to the Future and all that has George Duke with people like Howard Hewitt on the soundtrack. I was like, wow, now I want to buy the soundtrack because it's so damn cool.
Well, the soundtrack is what kind of keeps the movie memorable, because, you see these teen films and they might have a catchy song that's instantly forgettable, but this thing has nothing but bangers on it, even though they were never quite hits. But it's like, wow, this is actually a good song, like Groovin' Tonight, Out on the Edge, which is the title song of the movie. The soundtrack, which is available, but minus 3 cuts from the score, at least in the United States. That is something that I can always listen to because I have a copy of it. But also it automatically takes me back to the movie, and it's a movie that just always feels comfortable. Like there might be some things to offend, but there's not much to offend. I mean, I would say the worst thing in this movie is language, and there's like a brief sex scene where he finally gets the girl of his dreams, and then she just wants a quickie in a car, and then he's automatically turned off when she's like, "Oh, you were a virgin. I've had a lot of virgins." And I'm like, how did you not know this if you've been obsessing over this girl for 4 or 5 years? Like, you should know maybe she's a little bit on the easy side. But also the film kind of then makes her a villain for having kind of a teenage sex drive that all the other characters have too. Now,
yeah, it came out in that period with all the teen sex romps, and like Back to the Future, it's very sanitized. Even Teen Wolf to a certain extent. I think Teen Wolf goes a little further, but this is very sanitized with like, okay, he's looking at boobs, but nobody's like showing their tits. Nobody is doing anything explicit. They get high at one point, which is kind of funny, so it's like that carefree 80s kind of feel, but nothing really like so raunchy and terrible that it's like, oh, it's so hard to watch. Maybe that's why it didn't do as well at that time, because it was just not a big budget with known TV stars.
I mean, you could also question the logistics, like how's a ghost getting high and drunk? Like if he can't touch anything physical, but yet can sit in a chair, trip people. And I mean, little things that are like watching it now, like how old are the bullies? Because they look way too old to be in high school. And I'm like, and that guy who plays the bully sidekick, was he like in every other 80s movie as a villain or sidekick? Because I'm like, I know I've seen him in at least 5 other films playing that same type of role. Nancy Valens, who some of you might remember from Hull High, is in this movie playing, I guess, the nice girl who liked him before.
And she's gorgeous in this.
Yes, and you don't understand. Well, again, because it's a movie. It's like, why don't you see the hottie who loves you and who appreciates you? But I'm like, no, he has to go for the blonde chick. But it's understandable as long as they didn't have one of those scenes where she's like, oh, now I'm going to take off my glasses and look gorgeous. Because I'm like, no, because she looks gorgeous playing. Like she could have played the other girl role, except they give this one a personality.
I also thought Richard Mulligan, who's very good in this film, I really think Howard Hessman should have played it.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I think this was the Richard Mulligan role. Between this and Teachers,
It was great.
I like to forget the show Empty Nest exists. I wish Richard Mulligan had just played these types of roles throughout his career. Hessman has his good credits. Mulligan needs the few good credits that he has.
Which reminds me, we should deep dive A Fine Mess. That opening title sequence, oh boy.
Yeah, good luck trying to find A Fine Mess. Any Howie Mandel movie you already know is going to be hard to find. But what I also liked about the film, I don't know if you remember this, but in the mid-'80s, America seemed to develop this trend of being obsessed with Australia and the 1950s all over again.
Yeah.
So this film brings out, luckily, just the 1950s and not the Australian, genre. But, like when he builds his new car, literally by magic, it's like a 1950 Roadster, even Rafferty is using an old bike that looks like so bulky, it had to be from the past. Even the clothes he wears, which are supposed to be hip, cool, and modern, are basically 1950s throwbacks. Lewis Smith's character can't get out of the same wardrobe, leather jacket, slicked back hair, white t-shirt that never gets dirty. In fact, I think the closest the film comes to nudity is Jason Gedrick being stripped naked in a clothing store during, makeover.
That was kind of funny though.
So I'm like, while Howard Hessman would have been nice in the role, I feel like this movie stands on its own, and maybe because Richard Mulligan is really the biggest name in this movie. I mean, Jason Gedrick was a teen star. He was in all the magazines. I mean, come on, nobody's career can come back after Rooftops.
Yeah, but he couldn't come to a good contract to do Iron Eagle 2, so they had to use footage to kill him off.
Which, hey, him and Channing Tatum, with G.I. Joe movies.
Yeah, maybe that's like the early Channing Tatum.
But see, here's the difference. I liked Iron Eagle too. So, I saw that one first, when it went straight to home. Well, it was in theaters, but I saw it on home video. Like I said, I'll admit this isn't the best. This isn't even the most memorable. I mean, I could have talked about Mischief with Kelly Preston. Yeah. I could have talked about Secret Admirer with Kelly Preston.
I confused the two movies. Secret Admirer and Heavenly Kid, I get mixed up sometimes.
See, here's how you can always remember. Secret Admirer has nudity and sex.
Yeah.
Heavenly Kid lives up to its title. It's like, this is a movie I feel like I could show if I had kids, my teenagers, I'll
even put it this way. I feel like all three movies are in the same universe.
Okay, I don't understand how that works. Two are dirty. One is, I can see Mischief and the Heavenly Kid kind of coming together. But I mean, what would put a Secret Admirer in with that? And
it could be another neighborhood.
Yeah, but a neighborhood where everybody's having affairs.
Hey, you never know. What goes on?
I was gonna say, and not to mention the other two are, no offense to Secret Admirer, the other two are wholesome. Secret Admirer is kind of just dirty, so that's why I would never put them together. And how come I've Got It Covered never became a catchphrase from this movie? I guess because nobody saw it. So, this film, filmed in Florida, by the way, was never probably meant to be, a great hit. It's what I would call a placeholder film. It's like every week you had movies that came out in theaters and studios just wanted to win the war of that box office. This had a brief theatrical run, but at the time, home video was taking over. So I feel like this movie was more made to hit those home video and cable markets more than trying to turn a profit in theaters. Because again, your biggest name is Richard Mulligan at the time, I think it got probably a little more popularity, like you said, in the 2000s when Jane Kaczmarek, kind of became more of a star, and then people started looking up, oh, what was she in before? And that's when, this film got a little more notice. But like I said, I really enjoyed this film. And again, while it's not a cinematic classic, I think it deserves maybe a little bit more than probably what it gets now, which is barely remembered, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a good time waster. It's not great, but like Teen Witch, Teen Wolf, and like you said, Secret Mire or Mischief. It's one of those like it's a movie you watch on a Saturday or a Sunday when you got nothing to do and you just need something to put on TV. That's really what this is.
And it kind of, I'll admit, it doesn't preach, but it does have a moral to it in the end,
Yeah, just be
you know?
yourself and don't get into drag races.
Well, I don't. I'm hope. Well, again, I can't. I would hope the second part nobody was doing anyway, but you never know. And if anything, that's the brutality of the film is watching these like nice 1950s steel cars be demolished
Yeah.
in these car crashes, where I don't think those were effects. I think they really crashed those cars. Now, if you were going to say, like, I like Richard Mulligan, and you said, what's his name?
Howard
Howard
Hessman.
Hessman. I would say if I was going to recast that role, I would actually take the person who from a movie you already just described. I would have given you a Christopher Lloyd. And
Yeah, probably. If he didn't get Back to the Future, I could have seen him do that. I would even go as far as to say, if you wanted to really cash in on the Australian craze, you could have had Maxwell Caulfield instead of Lewis Smith as the kid.
nah. Two blondes do not work fighting over Jane Kaczmarek. You need a brunette and a blonde. So no, and I think wisely Maxwell Caulfield was staying away from anything 1950s themed after Grease too. Even though I personally like Grease too, but whatever. That's another show for another day. So, but I mean, since I don't really know who's big in 1985, I can't put too many other casting changes. Like I can't say, oh, this person would have been better than Jane Kaczmarek. I think this is unfortunately next to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Out of all the against type roles for Mark Metcalf, this is the closest you're going to get because his character, really doesn't get his time to shine or credit for like what his character goes through. Instead, we get a comedic scene where he's drunk on beer and burping. It's like, oh god, this is like Animal House all over again. you know. Um, Carrie Medaway directed only one more other film that I know of, and interestingly enough, it's another Fox 5 staple from the 80s, which was filmed in the same year, Paradise Motel, where a kid who's new in town basically rents out, uses his parents own a motel. And so basically the cool kids need places to have sex. So they befriend him so he can always provide a room for them. And then of course he finds out that the girl he has a crush on is the ex-girlfriend or current girlfriend of the guy who he keeps giving the room to. So basically, this film has all the sex and nudity that the Heavenly Kid lacks. I like both of these films, so I will give the career of Carrie Medaway as a director, a honest B because the movies are B teen movies. But they're both enjoyable. Forget like you said, time wasters, forgettable, but they meant something to me. These were the films I watched on like I don't know a Tuesday night when they were on or afternoon weekend afternoon. Just to like this is on. Let me see this. And since the characters are supposed to be teenagers, it was the closest to my age to watch. So that's I guess the Heavenly Kid. Do you have anything else to say about the Heavenly Kid before we go?
It's a time waster, and it's not terrible if you give it a chance.
Well, here's gonna be the most important question: would you recommend it? And
Probably not. It wouldn't be the first movie that comes to mind.
well, yeah, not the first. I'm just saying. If somebody's like, "Hey, never seen the Heavenly Kid. Would you? Should I watch it?"
Yeah. If you want to waste time, you got nothing to do, watch it.
See, I think of it a little more higher. I think of it as like it's. I mean,
It's not the gold standard.
yeah, it's not. My thing is, it's a nice stepping stone. Like it's something again, just watch it. Just check it out. You know.
At least for the soundtrack. That's the only thing worthwhile.
Yeah, see how they work the soundtrack into the scene. Even though Groovin' Tonight is probably the closest scene to having any nudity in it, because he picks up girls just because he has a car, and then these girls have like massive amounts of cleavage, and where the camera seems to focus, as does Lewis Smith's eyes throughout the scene. So it does play like a music video. So, like I said, I like it. I would suggest you check it out. Obviously, Andre's more iffy on it. It's, you know, I don't know if there is a DVD or a Blu-ray out for it, but if there's a Blu-ray and it has any extras, I'm there. So, and rest in peace, Richard Mulligan. So that ends our business for this week. But as you know, we always have unfinished business. And I will ask you, have you seen another Lewis Smith starring classic, Diary of a Hitman, with Forrest Whitaker, Jim Belushi, Sherilyn Fenn, and Sharon Stone? If not, why not? Because personally, I think it's fucking awesome. Andre, what movie would you recommend?
Have you seen Buckaroo Banzai? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
A good pick. And with that, we will see you guys next time.